Okay, so the humanitarian response plan tips were initially developed several years ago. However, during these years, we have adapted and developed them several times. I'm going to present you now very briefly the latest version we currently have. However, it is still in draft, and it's waiting approval of the global cluster coordinator. That's why these HRP tips have not been yet shared with anybody, the latest version. Uh, but I just want to present you. Can people mute? Okay, thank you. I just wanted to present you the structure and how useful it can be for you. Maybe once we have the latest version, which we are also planning to give to designer, I will do another webinar. But just now to present very briefly, because it's related to our indicators registry and monitoring and evaluation framework discussion. But again, just to bear in mind that it's still in a draft. So the tips on nutrition interventions organized according to the different areas which you like program areas plus accountability to affected population and cluster coordination. Each chapter organized in a similar way where you would have objectives and specific objectives for each particular activity or area, what groups of beneficiaries to include, sample activities and tips that can be included in this project, and then suggested indicators to monitor and what to consider while preparing budget. While the humanitarian response plan tips are mainly tool for the cluster coordinators and for cluster partners while developing projects and reviewing projects and developing humanitarian response plan. It has this suggested indicators chapter, which can be useful for you to decide on the indicators you are going to monitor with partners. So I just want to start from a program example. For example, for rapid nutrition screening and referral, when you go to suggested indicators, you would see list of indicators and how you measure them at facility level and whether it's output, outcome, or process indicator. And you see that many of indicators have links. So this link is actually linked to the indicators registry, which I just showed to you. And if you click on it, you go directly to the description of this indicator. So this means that for you, it can, while selecting indicators, it can be very useful to go to these tips, and then depending on what is you are going to measure, you will see a specific, very short list of related indicators from which you can choose your indicators. Also, I mentioned that humanitarian indicators registry only have program indicators, but here, for example, you would have for the cluster coordination also suggested indicators. As you see, there are no links for these indicators, which means they are not in the humanitarian indicators registry. However, you can check through these indicators to measure how good your cluster coordination is going. For example, number of coordination staff hired in timely manner, availability of terms of reference for the cluster, proportion of cluster performance monitoring recommendations followed up with specific time frame, and so on. So this is also a very good resource for you to go and check for the indicators for the monitoring of the humanitarian response plan. Also, there is a chapter on the accountability to affected populations. As you all recently received, Global Nutrition Cluster has developed accountability to affected population framework and indicators for it. And here you have main indicators from this framework, which you can also consider to be included in your humanitarian response plan. And very briefly, that's everything what I wanted to say you for the framework. You see cluster coordination, AP, and then all the program areas which you might have in in your HRP. It also includes nutrition survey, nutrition surveillance, and direct program coverage evaluation chapters, which you can also include in your HRP monitoring if this is what you are proposing to do in your HRP. But again, when the final tips will be ready, we will be share it with you, and I might even have another webinar to discuss more on that. And that's it. Do you have any questions on the HRP tips? Okay.
Not a question, but actually the suggestion about another webinar when the HRP tips will be, the final version will be ready, is actually welcome.
Okay, thank you, Hanoa. So then let me switch off the webinar.